Welcome to Polymarket Prof. I'm Professor Benjamin Smart, and on this channel I test what the wisdom of crowds can tell us about world affairs and whether there are moments when the market gets the odds wrong and ordinary people, like us, can profit from that. Today's episode is about Iran, war, and serious problems for the whole prediction market thesis. What happens when the crowd isn't just wise, but informed by insiders? Because that seems to be a part of what's happening here. Prediction markets are often defended on the grounds that they're better than pundits, better than expert hot takes, and sometimes even better than polls. They generate a price. That price represents a probability, and that probability reflects a collective belief. But why should that collective belief tend towards the truth? Well, the usual answer is that markets aggregate information better than almost anything else. People have skin in the game. They're not just expressing an opinion, they're risking money on it. Bad takes are punished, good judgment is rewarded, and as new information comes in, the price updates in real time. That's the theory. Often it works remarkably well. Prediction markets have a decent track record of outperforming standard forecasting models, and they're often better than pundits at registering genuine uncertainty. They force people to speak in probabilities, not narratives, and that matters because experts are often much too confident. Markets, at their best, are more humble. Take the 2016 election. Now, to be careful, it's not quite true that prediction markets alone boldly called Trump while absolutely no one else saw it coming. Clinton was widely favored, but the broader point remains. Markets were among the few places where a Trump victory was continuously priced as a live possibility, even while elite commentary often treated it as borderline absurd. That's one of the virtues of markets. They force people to respect the possibility that the world might not go the way respectable experts think. But now we come to the problem, because the Iran case reveals something much darker. Not darker simply on the grounds of it being a war and horrific and lots of people dying and so forth. But beyond that, recent reporting suggests that people made very large sums of money betting on US strikes on Iran shortly before they happened. In other words, there is a serious suspicion that some traders weren't just good at reading the room, they may have known what was coming. Large sums of money were placed on Polymarket just hours before the strikes, and millions were made. And if that's true, and it's widely reported as true, that creates a major challenge for the whole idea behind this channel. Because if insiders are setting the price, then the ordinary trader isn't really going to outsmart the crowd. He may be trading against people who already know the answer. And that changes things. But it doesn't change everything. Here's the distinction I want to make. Insider trading can make a market more accurate while making it less fair. That sounds odd, but it's true. If someone knows that a strike is coming and buys yes before the public announcement, then the price may move closer to the truth. So from the standpoint of pure forecasting, the market can improve. But from the standpoint of fairness and from the standpoint of whether normal traders can profit, the market becomes much nastier. So the question isn't, are insiders ever active? Of course they are, sometimes. Certainly here, where it's a sort of a crypto-based system, and so it's basically anonymous, and insider traders can quite easily get away with it. But the real question is, are insiders setting every relevant price all of the time? And I don't think that's likely. Insiders may know if a strike is coming tonight, they may know whether an announcement is imminent, they may know whether a speech has already been drafted, and that gives them an enormous advantage in short horizon, event-based markets. But they do not necessarily control every second order market that follows from that. They may know a strike is coming. That doesn't mean they know exactly how long disruption in the Strait of Hormuz will last. It doesn't mean that they know how long Iran can hold out politically. It doesn't mean that they control the full strategic picture once public bargaining begins. And let's compare this to like Trump's tariff situation. Trump was able to switch the tariffs on and off just by saying so, right? But wars are a bit different. There are people involved. There are thousands of troops involved. There are ships involved. There are economies involved. Trump can't just decide what's going to happen and then that's what happens. And so I think that's where there may still be room for ordinary traders. not in markets dominated by a single secret, but in markets shaped by incentives, leverage, logistics, and public strategy. So, what is Polymarket telling us about Iran right now? Well, what seems to be emerging is a very interesting pattern. The market appears more optimistic about de-escalation than it is about normalization. That's the key point. In other words, traders seem to think that the broader conflict may cool off before shipping through the Strait of Hormuz gets back to normal, and that strikes me as extremely plausible. Because if you ask what real leverage Iran still has, the answer is fairly obvious: Hormuz. Iran can't overpower the United States militarily in a conventional sense. It can't simply force Washington to back down, but it can impose global economic pain by forcing up oil prices through closing the Strait of Hormuz and refusing to open it. And that is its leverage. And if that's your leverage, you don't give it away cheaply. That's why I don't think the Strait of Hormuz is reopening properly anytime soon. Not because Iran wants permanent closure, and not because Iran is irrational, but because Iran is very unlikely to capitulate to Trump. If Hormuz is your main bargaining chip, you don't casually surrender it just because the other side demands it loudly enough. You hold it, you use it, and you trade it only for something significant. That's why I think some of the more optimistic rhetoric coming from Trump should be treated with caution. Public messaging from political leaders is often strategic, and it can move markets. It's meant to project strength, claim momentum, and frame the negotiation. And Iran's own public statements have hardly sounded like those of a state preparing unconditional surrender, have they? So, when I look at the market and when I compare it to the rhetoric, I come away with this view. Polymarket may be right that the immediate shooting won't continue forever, but that doesn't mean the pressure points disappear quickly. And for trading purposes, that matters a lot, because it suggests a broader lesson. The ordinary trader should be very wary of markets where the key question is something like, will a strike happen tonight? Will this announcement drop in the next 2 hours? Those are exactly the places where insider information can destroy your edge. But markets about what happens after the event, markets about endurance, leverage, incentive, sequencing, and strategic bargaining may still be much more open. That doesn't mean easy money, it means something more modest, but still important. It means the presence of insiders does not destroy the entire prediction market project. It just means you need to be more selective about where the crowd is aggregating public reasoning and where it may simply be front-running private knowledge. And that really is what this channel is about. Not blind faith in markets, not treating the crowd as magical, but asking, case by case, when the price is genuinely informative, when it may be distorted, and whether there are still mispricings that thoughtful, ordinary traders can exploit. And in the Iran case, my own view is this: I don't think Iran is about to capitulate. I don't think Hormuz is reopening fully anytime soon. And I think the most interesting Iran markets are no longer the ones about the initial shock, but the ones about how long leverage can be sustained once the shock has already happened. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. And if you have any Polymarket investments that look sensible to you, please feel free to drop them in the comments and explain why. I'll see you on the next one.